Hello and welcome to Economic Forum, where we discuss various issues affecting our economy in Zimbabwe. These can be issues to do with the arts, with culture, agriculture, education, health, and many other aspects of life. We bring them to Economic Forum and see how they impact on our economy. My name is John Masugu. Zimbabwean musicians have penetrated international markets. Some have made it and others have not made it over the years. And today we want to look at how they get into these markets, what their identities are like with regards to the music that they take there, and also look at other issues that would promote music as a business. And to discuss all that and many more other related things, we've invited Clive Mukundu, who is a guitarist and a music producer. Clive, we welcome you to Economic Forum.
Thank you so much, John. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Well, it's good to have you. You know, I've just said that over many years, our musicians have been all over. Some have made it and some have not made it. Let's start with what they will be taking overseas and what makes it and what doesn't make it.
Okay, what happens with the music industry is that the music industry is not much based on talent. It's based on strategy. And when we talk of strategy, strategy includes the type of music that you choose to be identified with. It also includes the image that you choose to be identified with. Now, when we talk of the international market, I've traveled over 30 countries as a festival musician, as a traveling musician. You notice that the international market is interested more in originality and authenticity. Originality, that's something like yourself. Authenticity is something like where you come from. So they're not expecting to hear dancehall artists from Kenya, a rumba artist from Namibia. Rumba has to come from DRC, dancehall has to come from Jamaica. And from Zimbabwe, they are looking at it's either Mbira-based music or the Bulawayo or Mbube music. So if you check our history, most of our exports, or the majority, or I can safely say 99% of our exports, it has been those two genres. It says that the Mbira-based music or the Mbube-based music. And when I say Mbira-based music, I don't mean you have to play the actual Mbira. The artists like Oliver Mtukudzi, Thomas Mafumo, they did not play the actual Mbira, but their guitar styles were Mbira guitar styles. So that's proper Zimbabwe music.
Yes. Now, when these musicians go out, what really motivates them? Is it the popularity here, when they are popular singing, whatever they are singing, whether it's dancehall music and so forth, that they think that now that we're always having holes pegged here, we can now try the overseas market?
No matter how anybody can lie that they don't care about the international market, the truth is every musician wants to be international. So what happens for you to be invited by international music promoters? They look at certain things, and if you don't match those things, you won't be invited. So like you said, a lot of artists, they see how popular they are locally and think that they can take it internationally. But as I've mentioned, music has got principles and laws. The promoters have got things that they'll be looking at. So if you don't give them what they are looking for, they won't invite you. So that's why we've got, I think the majority of our current artists right now, every time they go to the UK, to the United States, to Australia, they're going to play for Zimbabweans. And we don't call that international because we are going to play for the same nation as you.
So, Clive, in terms of monetary gain and this international performance, what difference then do you deduce out of that? I go out, I play, regardless whether it's full of Zimbabweans or it's a mixture, I still make money. Why would we worry about that?
When you play for a true international audience, monetary-wise, you gain more. I've been fortunate enough to play on both sides of the divide. Because I toured a lot with Oliver Mtukudzi for 4 years, and I toured with Johnny So for 2 years. And what happens is the international community values musicians more than the Zimbabwean community. Even the way the shows are organized, the money that you are paid, the way you are treated, everything is totally different. And also when you penetrate the international market, you also penetrate the market in terms of sales. That's why artists like Oliver Mtukudzi right now is still receiving a lot of royalties from around the world. Even in his grave, he's making more money than a lot of living artists, because there's a lot of money coming from the States, a lot of money coming from Europe, a lot of money coming from around Africa. So being international has got a lot of advantages, because in Zimbabwe, music is not paying that much. Because as musicians, we survive from change. We survive from people's disposable income. So nobody would think about buying an expensive ticket when their children's fees is not yet paid. So the amount of money that the people are getting kumabasa kwao is what determines whether a $10 ticket is expensive or not. Because if you look in at places like the United States, their most expensive tickets starts from $500 for a show, one show, and the show doesn't exceed 2 hours. But in Zimbabwe, if you charge $10, it's considered expensive. So you see the differences. So if you are performing for an international audience, or if you are international, it's very easy for you to be a millionaire.
How do you identify such markets where you can go and perform for people who pay $500 a show? I think that's very, very important, because at times some of these musicians go out or are managed by people and they cry foul.
Yeah, I think I can structure it like this. The best way for an artist to be noticed by the international community is to be authentic, to identify with their own culture. Our music history starts in the 1930s when urbanization started. So each generation from the 1930s has had a foreign music genre that dominates in Zimbabwe, and we have had replicas of that genre or of those artists in Zimbabwe. For example, in the 30s, there's an artist called Jimmy Rogers from America. He was a country musician. His music had a huge impact in Zimbabwe, as well as a big band, old school jazz music. So we had a lot of country musicians that time. Then from the 40s, we had big band jazz. We had artists, local musicians like the other one called D. Blake Evening Follies.
Yes.
Yeah, it had around 20-something members. Yeah. They were copying what they were singing on
what is usually referred to as township music.
Yeah,
it was a replica of that music.
Yeah, it was developed from that music. Then from the 50s, it was quartets. That's when all these cool fours started, and cool crooners. That was in the 50s. In the 60s came in Simaji Manje and DRC Rumba, old school rumba. If you know Wana Franco. Then from the 70s, it was rock music. And during the rock era, we had a lot of local rock musicians, the likes of Manu Kambane, who was a replica of Jimi Hendrix.
IQ.
We had IQ, Nibloya, they had Wells Fargo, there was Eye of Liberty.
Pied Pipers.
Yeah, we had a lot of groups. So the point I'm trying to make is, if you look across all this timeline, all the musicians that I tried to sound foreign never went anywhere.
Well, Clive, I'll stop you there. That's Clive Mukundu. We are discussing music, in particular the importance of identity. When we go out there, we are much more successful when we maintain our identity. And those, historically, those who have gone, to sing Mbira-based, not necessarily Mbira, but Mbira-based music, Mbube and Nguzu-based music, have made it more than those who have been copycats. So join us in the second segment of Economic Forum. We are now in the second segment of Economic Forum, where we are discussing music. And in the first segment, we spent some time discussing identity. And that identity is very important, especially in promoting the economic value of that music, as we discussed the difference between those shows that are just attended by Zimbabweans in the diaspora, or those shows that are attended by those living in those countries. So our guest here has been explaining that, and that's Clive Mukundu, who is a guitarist and a music producer. Clive, when we look at all these things, we're looking at the economic value, as I've said, especially when it comes to identity. What is it that we are taking to those countries in the name of Zimbabwe and for the benefit of Zimbabwe, especially when it comes to brands that we're making money with?
Okay, in terms of messages, the international community usually is not worried about language, because usually we use Shona, and they don't mind about which language you are using as long as it sounds good. So in terms of message, you just have to explain what you are singing, and then you sing in your own language. But in terms of culture, I don't know how can I put it across, but what happens is every type of music is backed by the culture from where the originators of the music come from. If you are listening to rock music, it's backed by the culture of the Americans. If you are listening to dancehall music, it's backed by the culture of Jamaicans. That's why you notice that we're experiencing a serious problems of drug abuse, because that is to do with that music. Because when you go to Jamaica, I was in Jamaica last year, 2024 in February. There's the roots reggae community. Those Rastas, Bob Marley, they've got a very different culture. They are totally two different worlds from those in the dancehall community. Because the roots reggae community are all about peace and love. Let's love each other. One love. People get ready. The dancehall culture has got a lot of negatives. One, it promotes promiscuity. There's what they call slackness, where they sing about sex, where they sing about, even the videos, there will be half-naked women, and sometimes even naked women. They will be singing about vulgar themes, and there's even a lot of fighting, even amongst the artists, right on stage. So you notice that we are copying that. When you copy a genre of music, you also copy the culture behind. That's why right now we are busy trying to fight drug abuse on one hand. At the same time, we are promoting dance, so we are contradicting ourselves.
So while we make money out of such things, but we have to be aware that we are also building our society and avoid some of the negative features.
Yeah, it's true. I can safely say chirombe chadzoka futi in the form of dancehall. Chirombe chadairowera tinoona kuti kunzi musati marombe chadzoka futi in the form of dancehall, because right now look at how many dancehall artists who are now mentally disturbed due to drugs. Quite a number of them, and some of them are dying very young. So I think it's something that has to be taken seriously, because we're just looking at it's popular, we can use it to market our goods, we can use it to promote this.
To make money.
Yeah, to make money. Because, of course, locally they're making money, but not internationally, because you cannot export Zim dancehall. Because they are copying Jamaicans. So, but locally, of course, they're making money.
When the local content policy was introduced, there were some mixed feelings. Others welcomed it, and others were a bit skeptical. Your views on that, and how it is impacting local business and the economy in Zimbabwe?
That law is something, I think it's one of the best things that ever happened to the Zimbabwe music industry. The implementation might not have been perfect, and there was a lot of skepticism, but that was a very beneficial law to the musicians. But you know how it happens? When you try to free the slaves, your biggest enemy is not the slave driver, it's the slaves themselves who are being liberated. So I think people misunderstood it. Because if you go around the world, you will never hear a Zimbabwean song on national radio in America or in UK or anywhere else. They promote their own. But in Zimbabwe, you find, in our top 10, you find a song from Nigeria, a song from South Africa. In other countries, they remove those songs deliberately so that they promote their own music. The only countries that I know that don't have that law, I think it's America and it must be India. But if you look at those people, they are very patriotic. Americans are patriotic naturally. But that law, it promotes your own music. And if you check around that time, when it was implemented, a lot of artists rose up. I remember I was playing for Oliver Mtukudzi at that time. That was the first time a local musician could compete against a foreign musician playing at the same day. I remember we had a show at Glamis Arena, and the foreign artist was playing, a very popular foreign artist was playing at the HICC with a bigger crowd. It was because of that law. But the problem happened when there are some radio DJs, who protested cleverly. They started playing rubbish. So everybody started saying, this is the local content, so why don't we go
without
back?
actually encouraging each other.
Yeah, because what happens is everywhere where that law was introduced, there was always one complaint internationally, because that law is found in every country. There was always a complaint that said we don't have enough good material. In Canada, the government actually funded artists to go to very good producers so that they have got a lot of good content, so that the radio stations will not have a complaint and say we don't have enough good material. So I think that was the mistake, number one. Number two, when you put that law, it has to go hand in hand with quality control. You need very good quality control so that you pick the best from your country and kick out the trash.
That's Clive Mukundu is our guest today. We are discussing different aspects of music and how they impact business and economic development. Clive Mukundu is a guitarist and a music producer. So join us in the third and final segment of Economic Forum. In the first two segments of Economic Forum today, we've been focusing mainly on issues to do with the talent of musicians as well as their performance, especially identity and making it or not making it on different markets. But we now look at their brands. How are they managed? How are they facilitated? And those are things that we are going to wind up this program discussing with Clive Mukundu, who is a guitarist and a music producer. That aspect of management, because in the long run, when the musicians die as paupers and so forth, it's blamed on them that they were not organized.
Yeah, true. Like I mentioned earlier, the music industry, what makes you successful is not your talent, it's your strategy. So strategy also includes branding. Now, when we talk of branding, it includes petty things like the way you dress. I'm sure if you put a shadow of Michael Jackson with his head, you can tell that's Michael Jackson, even with a shadow alone. That's branding as well. How you dress, how you talk in public, even how you speak to the press. And then it also comes to even the genre that you choose to be identified with. I think we mentioned it earlier. And there's one mistake that's being done by a lot of musicians where they say, I'm a versatile artist, I play everything. That's a recipe for disaster. Because if you look around the world, there's no musician without a niche market. It's either you do this music only, and everybody who loves that music, so if you look at all the musicians that were popular or that were icons back then, that are icons right now, they stick to one genre. Burna Boy is just known as an Afrobeats artist. Thomas Mofumo is known as a Mbira artist. Tyler is known as an Amapiano artist. Bob Marley was just known as a reggae musician. That also speaks to branding. And then lastly, we talk of things like management. You really need a good manager. You need somebody who really understands the business side of music, because that's one area that's killing a lot of talent.
And they relate very well, because each time we always hear about differences between managers and the artists. I think you better mention that. Because if an artist then does not make it financially, they blame it on the manager.
I think, like I mentioned, you need to pick somebody who is really business-minded, who understands the business side of the music industry. and also who understands such things as contracts. Because in Zimbabwe, we've got a contract phobia. People don't want to sign contracts in Zimbabwe. They just want to do a gentleman's agreement, but in the long run, we always see things going haywire. So basically, you need somebody who understands the business side of music and all the aspects that have to do with management. Because management can be broken down into different segments. Like, for example, there's the publicist who deals with the media. If the artist is big enough, you can have different segments and different people who deal or who are in charge of different departments of management. Like the road manager who deals with the shows, the publicist who deals with the press, who also helps you how to speak to the newspapers, who hands down for interviews when you release something new, and the one who deals with the band and everything. So that all those areas, they need to be taken care of with wisdom.
Now, there are other issues really that affect musicians. Piracy is one of them. Copyright is one of them. I'm sure all those are also included in the contract, but let's talk about them. Piracy, copyright, as well as the coming of the internet.
Okay, what happened with piracy is piracy affected the whole world, and everywhere else they dealt with it, and in Zimbabwe, nothing was done. If anything was done, it was just a slap on the wrist, because some of those people that were arrested were charged something like $20, and when he's making thousands of dollars. So as a result, the structural side of the music industry died. Because the way the music industry works, or record labels work, is they record you on loan. Then they recoup their money from sales, and the sales are the ones that were taken by piracy. As a result, we ended up with no record labels. So the world moved from physical copies to downloading to streaming. That's where the whole world is right now. But when all these changes were made, we no longer had structures. So right now, as we speak, the Zimbabwe music industry, we don't have structures. It's just laws of the jungle.
How are we helping to bring them back, especially as producers, managers, and so forth?
There are certain things that are beyond our control, and then there are certain things that can be changed easily. For example, a lot of people these days, they don't have disposable income. So if somebody does not have disposable income, they cannot invest in music. The other thing that's letting us down, I think that local content law that was implemented in the early 2000s is no longer being implemented. Because right now we've got a lot of radio stations who are just promoting foreign music. Because as long as you give airplay to a foreign song, a local musician. And we also need them to promote genres that speak about our culture. Like I mentioned earlier, some of these genres that we are promoting are the same genres that are bringing us those drug-related problems that we are trying to fight. So, but in general, music can be monetized. Music can pay very well if everything is run accordingly.
Well, that's Clive Mukundu. We've been discussing with Clive about all things related to music, the business side of it, going international, local content, and also the advent of the internet and how we can monetize our music. If you have any questions to ask about what we've been discussing and about issues discussed in different programs, you can get in touch with us on the numbers that are showing on your screen. If you would like to engage with us, you can also do that on the social media platforms that are also showing on your screen. If you have missed some of the episodes of Economic Forum, you can watch them on our YouTube channel, which is Economic Forum Zimbabwe. So on behalf of our guest, that's Clive Mukundu, who is a guitarist and a music producer, and the Economic Forum production team, this is John Masugu wishing you happy viewing.